Good evening. I forgot what day it was. It's Tuesday.
July 9th.
No, it's Thursday, July 9th. Oh my. It is 7:03, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor's Order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 20, as well as the Select Board's emergency order dated March 16th, 2020, the Holliston School Committee will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the HCAT webpage within 24 hours in accordance with the Governor's emergency action requirement of keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I ask that all participants remotely attending please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak throughout the meeting. At this time, we will take a roll call attendance. Mrs. Listevnik.
Present.
Mr. Morton.
Present.
Ms. Naborski.
Present.
Ms. Koshin.
Present. Sorry.
You're okay. Ms. Savard.
Present.
And Mrs. Raffi, present. At this time, I will take a motion to approve remote participation for this meeting.
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Cynthia. Roll call vote. Mrs. Listevnik.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Ms. Naborski.
Yes.
Ms. Koshin.
Yes.
Ms. Savard.
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. And so the only one absent this evening or for the time being is Ms. Hanstead. Okay, great. Let's jump right into it. We have some meeting minutes to approve. June 20, actually, let's jump back. June 4th, 2020, regular session. Any questions, comments, changes to those meeting minutes? Catherine?
I just want to be clear that I don't vote on these since I wasn't there.
You can abstain, so you'll abstain.
Okay.
Any questions or changes? Okay, is there a motion to approve June 4th, 2020 regular session meeting minutes?
Moved by Cynthia.
Okay, moved by Cynthia, seconded by Andy. All in favor, Mrs. Listevnik.
Yes.
Mr. Morton. That's a yes. Ms. Naborski.
Yes.
Ms. Koshin.
Yes.
Ms. Savard.
Abstain.
Abstain. And Ms. Hanstead.
Yes.
All right. And executive session minutes for June 25th. Any questions, comments? Okay, so I will take a motion to approve, and we can actually release those meeting minutes because we have a new interim superintendent. So is there a motion to approve June 25th executive session minutes?
Moved by Dawn. Moved by Dawn. Seconded by Lisa.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Lisa. Roll call vote. Mrs. Listevnik.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Ms. Naborski.
Yes.
Ms. Koshin.
Yes.
Ms. Savard.
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead.
Yes.
June 29th executive session minutes. Any questions, comments, changes? Is there a motion to approve and release the June 29th, 2020 executive session minutes?
Moved by Lisa.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Cynthia. Roll call vote. Mrs. Listevnik.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Ms. Naborski.
Yes.
Ms. Koshin.
Yes.
Ms. Savard.
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead.
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. And if I didn't say yes to the other one, if I forgot myself last time, I say yes to that as well, because Lisa will be taking the meeting minutes on this. All right. Does anyone on the school committee have any comments to share this evening? No? Lisa?
Yeah, I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you to
several people for a great opening to extended school year, ESY. This is a program for people at home that we do every year, but it was the in-person piece of it was greatly reduced this year. But I got to see Keith Boudet and Kelly Camp and Victoria Briggs and a lot of other people buzzing around Miller and doing kind of our practice run for when we hopefully open in September. So it was really exciting to see kids walking into the school. Not as exciting to see them wearing masks, but hey, they're doing it. And I know it took a tremendous amount of effort to pull it off. And I just wanted to say a huge congratulations and thank you to all those folks. But I know I'm leaving out some really important people. So maybe Keith can add on if I forgot any important people who are involved in the organization process.
They're all important, but yes, Lisa.
You're right. But yeah. I just wanted to give a shout out to Susan Pilevsky, who is our food services director, who was helping a great deal with making sure that we were feeding our Holliston families this summer, in addition to Keith Boudet, who helped to spearhead that effort to make sure that we're taking care of our families during this crisis. So thank you so much for that. Holliston families, thank you. It's, food insecurity is still an issue for people, so we need to make sure that we're taking care of ours. Thank you.
So I am not allowed to shout out to the people who did the reimbursement checks for the different reimbursements that we had this past spring. But those angels know who they are, and we thank them for, that was a lot of extra work, a lot of time, and I still am saying thank you, and they know who they are. And for people who may have received a refund in the mail for your bus fee, they have all been sent out. And if your amount is less than the $20, that means that you had some other fee owed to the district, and so that money was taken out before you got the full refund of $20. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me. My information is on the district website. And before we jump to central office administrators' comments, it is my pleasure to welcome our newest member of the team, and I'm so excited to introduce her to the community officially. Dr. Susan Kuska is our new interim superintendent, and she began on Monday, July 6th. And so if she wishes, she can speak during central office comment time. Otherwise, we can put you down under personnel. So whatever you choose, Susan. But on behalf of the school committee, it was great to interview you, and we welcome you, and welcome to your first meeting.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, even remotely with you. And I've been able to meet some of you in person, but socially distanced. And I've been able to talk with most of you either remotely as well. So I'm excited to be on board. It's a rigorous pace that we'll be moving at for the rest of the summer, but the team's working hard, and I will be able to give you a few updates about things that'll be happening as soon as tomorrow, if you'd like.
Great. So welcome. I'm going to ask you to hold those comments till we hit the COVID agenda.
Sounds good.
But welcome. We're so glad to have
Thank you so much.
Peter.
I think most of mine relate to ESY and COVID. So if you want me to save those, or, that's what they're about.
Oh, okay. We'll save them till we hit that agenda item.
Yep.
Keith?
Muted. Sorry, I had too many things going here. I just want to jump in from Lisa's comments. The other people who helping coordinate was Deb Holleran, who did a lot of the administrative roles for that. Lynn Bowler and her whole nursing staff with coordinating and working on the requirements for participation in that program. And obviously Meg Kamiri, our former student services director, who was also obviously very involved. With regard to Cynthia's piece, one piece that she neglected to mention is we've actually partnered now with Ashland. Ashland's not running a summer program, and so we've invited their families to come down to Holliston and eat, which is within we're allowed to do that. And from the Fed's perspective, they don't care if they reimburse us or Ashland, so it makes no difference to them. So where this program is going to be teetering on whether it makes money or not, we have a much better chance adding in the Ashland revenue for that. If we do lose money in the program, it is certainly CARES eligible. So we have a nice little safety net there. So we're doing a good thing for this community, and now Ashland as well. So just to add to that. What else did Stacy? You talked about something, Stacy. I lost it now. You mentioned, it couldn't have been important.
The refunds?
Oh, refunds. Yes, the refund checks went out. It's also a partnership with the town. They help go through the process as well. So I don't want to leave them out of the congratulations for it. We're not mentioning names again for reasons. So I just didn't want to leave that out. So thank you to all.
Great, thank you. Okay, so moving right along. So our first agenda item was personnel, and we can check that box off. Our search is over, and we have an interim. So Susan, if you wanted to take this opportunity to share with the community a little bit about yourself, and then you can jump right into some updates, and then Peter will follow your lead.
Sounds good. So thank you again for having me here in Holliston. I came here very quickly. I've been onboarding almost immediately, and as I mentioned, there's a lot of work for us to do, so I wanted to jump in to get to work with the team. But I come to you as an educator for 25 years. I was a special educator at the middle school level and a elementary educator, primarily in 3rd and 4th grade for 10 years. And I was an assistant principal, director of curriculum, and then I did that for about 4 years. And then I moved into the role of assistant superintendent for administration and personnel. So I've worn a lot of hats, which I think have helped to make me very well-rounded, and have handled many of the things, if not all, that a superintendent runs into. So I'm looking forward to a challenging, but I'm hoping very smooth sailing year, despite the challenges we are going to be facing, as we all are. I think we're going to have to face the year with flexibility, knowing things that there's still a lot of unknowns, and we'll speak to that a little bit further on. But I'm excited to be here regardless, and I'm excited to work with the school committee. Everybody's been very welcoming, and I've been able to meet very many of the team already so far, and I'm continuing to do some meet and greets remotely or in person, socially distanced next week as well. So thank you.
Great. So again, welcome. So we are going to move right into our school closure update. This has been an outstanding agenda item for months now. Susan and Peter, I don't know how you wanted to present it, but you both have information, and Keith might actually have information to share as well. So if you want to talk about the communication piece first, Susan, whatever you and Peter.
Yes, why don't we start with that? Because as recently as today, both Peter and I were on a call that the Commissioner of Education had a lot of discussion about, and every week and sometimes daily, we're getting more information as to how to proceed with the changes that will be in place for the reopening of school. We are feeling optimistic that school will reopen, and day to day we're making sure that we have systems in place to try to move in that direction. As of today, the Commissioner did let us know that we will hold any decisions about how we are reopening in the fall until at least the beginning of August. So he really, I think because the changes are coming in so quickly, and also in the event that anything changes with the virus and we see an uptick there, so the Commissioner is being cautious and making sure that we hold any decisions at the schools or district level until late July or early August. So that was a directive as of today. That being said, we know that all 4 schools have been working on plans at the school level as to how they would make things work for the 3 options of having students return physically to school, or if they were to return remotely, or a hybrid blend of the two. So all three plans are being worked on, but we still are gathering a lot of data to even move towards any decisions the Commissioner would like us to. But at this point, we just established this week some district subcommittees based on the areas of the Commissioner's initial reopening guidance. And we'll be starting meeting with our smaller teams as soon as Monday. As of tomorrow, I'll be sending out a memo to all parents. We would like to try to include at least one parent on each of the 5 subcommittees. So it's a rigorous turnover. We're asking tomorrow that the parents, if they are interested on serving on one of the committees, that they will reach out to the lead, which is in the memo, who's leading which group. And then they will have to get that information and a rationale as to why they would be best to serve on that committee by the end of the day on Monday. So they may miss our first meeting, but we'll get them as soon as we can into the next meeting. And we're really trying to just encourage, we don't want these groups to be unwieldy, but what we plan to do is these smaller groups will then come back together and meet together with the 5 members of all 5 groups, and then hopefully we'll be closer to being able to make a decision so that when the Commissioner has given us even a little bit more information, we can move in that direction and then hope to get that information out to parents as soon as possible. And additionally, we will be sending out a survey very soon to parents as well. We're keeping it very brief, given the additional information we received from the Commissioner today. We have decided that there'll be just 3 questions at the moment on that survey, just to try to give us some information about where parents are feeling about whether their students would return or whether they're thinking remote. So that survey will be going out sometime early next week, and we will also be developing and finalizing a survey for staff and getting that out as well, just to gather more data in this process with the subcommittees. So Peter can add on to that as well if he would like.
Susan, thank you for that. Can you just share what are the 5 subcommittees?
Now I'm going to go blank. So teaching and learning is going to be headed up by Peter, and Dan will be working with him. And then we have the student support group, which will be headed up by Lynn Bowler. And the special education and ELL group will be headed up by Kelly Camp. And I think the next group would be me. I'm going to handle personnel and staffing. And I've asked Jamie Catone to facilitate that group with me, because I think that's a big area that impacts our teachers and other groups. And the last group will be a combination of facilities and transportation, which will be headed up by Keith Boudet.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so just to get a little sense of what people have been doing in the last couple of weeks since we met, the first part was really both district admin and school-based groups unpacking the guidance that was released on June 25th that called for those 3 models that Susan spoke to. So they were unpacking the guidance while also continuing to think about those different models and how they would effectively operationalize those at the school level. In addition, as part of this guidance, which allows for a minimum of 3-foot distance while trying to get it as close to 6 as possible, we're doing some stress tests around room capacity at all buildings to see how many students we can safely fit within a room, and how does that compare to projected class sizes in those areas. So that's some of the work that's been going on as well. As Susan mentioned, these district-based subcommittees will work closely with the district admin group along with the school-based group, so that there's communication to and from each group. And so it is not like the district-based subcommittees are making the decisions in isolation. They are using input from the school-based groups as well as input from the district admin groups, so that all 3 groups are together with their collective knowledge, working to create plans that make sense for the district, for the betterment of all our kids, and that work and allow our staff to be as effective as possible. So those groups will work in conjunction. So it's been, in addition to a little, most groups, school-based groups did take last week off, which was much needed.
Can I just add, we did make sure, as quickly as we pulled together these district groups, we did make sure that we have representation from the admin from each building of between our assistant principals and principals and support and admin as well.
And Stacy, when you want, this is a separate, I can share a little bit more information on ESY when you want that as well.
Great. All right. Can we pause for a minute, Peter, and take questions?
Yep.
All right. Great. Dawn?
So I had two questions. The first was about how many people are in each of these 5 subcommittee groups. And the second question was, would there be a time that we would be prepared for a parent forum, even if it occurs remotely, in order to answer questions from the community? Is that something we could potentially entertain at the end of July or early August?
I would say that given the commissioner's input today, that we would probably wait until he tells us next steps on his end. And once we're closer to finalizing that plan, that would be, so it probably would be closer to the beginning of August if that were available at that time.
And Louise?
Wanted to commend Dr. Kuska for getting this off the ground so fast. I mean, you really did not skip a beat in starting. And I think having the subcommittees is an incredibly efficient way to approach this while still getting all the appropriate input. And thank you for including a parent on each of those, or guardian on each of the subcommittees. I think it will be very helpful.
You're welcome, and that was a suggestion from one of our principals, I will say, and I am happy that was I think that's a good direction to go. But also, just to be clear, obviously, I've been here a very short time, and the team has been doing yeoman's work already on this effort. So this is now just, to me, the next step to tie it together.
And so thank you to everybody, if that wasn't evident.
Oh, no, I think it was. I didn't mean to sound.
Everybody else, but anyway.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Dawn?
Just that follow-up, approximately how many members are on each of the subcommittees?
I think we have about 6 on each because we have at least 1 district lead and then a parent and at least 4 building. Some of them may have 7 at this point, but I believe 6 or 7 at this now.
And Susan or Peter, will you be including student voice in either the subcommittees or a later time?
I know the high school school-based group, I think has, maybe 15 students are going to be involved. It was the initial group that was larger, but when the summer started, I think it dropped a little bit. But there's a significant group at the high school, and I don't know what's going on yet at the middle school, but I'm sure that Jess and David will include student voices, knowing the way that they operate. But I'll find out more information on that.
Catherine?
So I know obviously the goal is to get kids back into buildings and back into seats. But I was wondering if not already, when will the quality of the online education and curriculum be addressed? Because, we have to be prepared for that too. Obviously, if there's a new wave and we have to close and go back down into quarantine sort of thing, that the feedback by and large has been that the way that the rollout happened and the
Did we lose you?
She froze, but I think
So I can just.
the point was maybe just trying to see if we can't make the curriculum more robust.
Yeah, I think a lot of the initial conversations in June before we had the guidance were really concentrated on just that. We were proud of the efforts that were put forth in the spring, and we know that we have vast room for improvement in order to continue to, deliver that remote piece as effectively as possible. So the efforts of the school-based committees as well as the district-based committees will have a strong component of preparing for remote learning, because we know we're definitely going to have a cohort of kids who are in remote learning regardless of where we're at, and we know we need to prepare fully for the possibility of more, if not all, kids going into remote learning at some point in the year, dependent upon the status of the pandemic. So that will be a strong focus. The curriculum work that's going on this summer by small cohorts of people are all, not all, but well, I would say all have some focus on remote learning in them, though some of them also have, different foci, including around equity and race and around literacy and around mathematics instruction. But they also do have this eye of knowing how would we do this effectively within a remote environment. There's some key PD that's going on this summer. And so, yeah, that's something that we know we're not expecting to implement remote learning the same way that we did in the spring. We are planning to do our very, very best to reflect upon what was effective and to build upon that in order to implement in a way that can be more effective for kids.
Peter, just to jump on that, Lisa, before you ask your question, I just want to expand on this for a second. But my question is, how are we going to train the teachers on the expansion of remote learning? So do we need to pull together PD days before school start? I might be asking you a detail that you don't have the answer to just yet, but I am very curious as to how we're going to train all of the teachers, because technically right now, many of them are on summer break. And so how do we work that?
Yeah, some teachers are involved in professional development or, summer curriculum work that's focused on improvements not only in curriculum, but in instruction. And the district and school-based groups will be, discussing how we can, they'll be, first of all, putting forth recommendations, and they already have started to do so, about what are best practices within a remote environment. Because there were some of those going on, and some of those we weren't able to implement, but we knew about, and some of them we're still discovering. And so those recommendations will be part of the planning at the school-based level, and also considerations about how is that delivered, what portion of that can be supported, prior to us returning, and how can we use both professional development days, whether they be full days or half days, as well as some of our common planning time and faculty meetings and other forums to continuously improve our remote learning instruction, at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. We're also hopeful that perhaps some of the future guidance from the state might allow for other opportunities as well. And we've been given indications that there's a chance that will happen. But if not, we will build it ourselves.
Great. Thank you. Lisa?
So the first part of my question is a little bit redundant, but bear with me because I just want to expand on it. I think this is a question for Susan. So we're saying in early August, we're going to be able to tell parents which of the three models we're looking at. So either in-person, fully virtual, or hybrid. Is that what we mean by this early August date?
Well, to be clear, at this point, we're expected to give the commissioner all three versions of what they would look like if we had to do any one of them. I think ideally, getting kids back to school is what we would all want. Realistically, it's more than likely going to be a blended version. A hybrid model is very complicated and doesn't always allow for as much teacher time with all students as we would like, unless we come up with something incredibly creative. So certainly there were a lot of questions from all of us as well. And the superintendent, the commissioner has been listening to those questions. And I think that's why he's rethinking some of those options for us. So yes, it makes us, we do have to put those plans in for all three options, but he's going to let us say why we think we may not be able to do one option or the other, or what we would need to do so. And obviously those needs could be great and have quite costly figures with them. And if the state cannot support those and we as a district cannot support those, and that might lead us to choose one of our other options. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'm just wondering when we'll be able, do we have a target date for when we're going to tell parents what we think our most likely scenario is? I feel like we've already told parents we think our most likely scenario is hybrid, but is there a target date for when we're going to sort of announce, like, okay, this is what we think we're going with for the fall?
I'm hopeful that it will be shortly after we get the go-ahead from the commissioner in early August, that we then pull everything together, and then we would, what's not clear right now is, are we submitting it to him for approval first? And obviously there's going to be input from our unions and so forth. And so do we approve it by school committee first, or does the commission going to have to look at this? So there's still many questions as to that, but I would hope that once we get the go-ahead as to what the commissioner wants for next steps, then it would be shortly after that time. Realistically, I'm thinking it may not be until August 15th or somewhere about mid-August, and that's very late. So certainly, and the later we go, that also might have us coming back to you with other things to consider, such as calendar and things like that. So I have been speaking to many other superintendents, and we've been sitting in other meetings that other superintendents have been talking about. And as we go, we're all rethinking about some of these things that are the later it gets, that may be things that we will be coming back to ask you to consider as well.
Okay, and then just one more quick question.
Lisa, can I?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to, I'm not, we're in no way in any position, as Susan spoke, to commit to any one of the particular models, but I'm not sure if at this point, hybrid, the way we were describing it previously, is necessarily the one we're leading to. We know we're going to have some kids who are remote, and we are very, very hopeful we're going to have some kids, and ideally a lot of kids in person. So that, that's become a real possibility as the guidance has been released. But again, we still need to do lots of work around preparations. We need to continue to follow the status of the pandemic. We need to follow the budgetary considerations that come into play before we can get close to, our declaring that we want to start with one particular model, and we need to be able to toggle between models throughout the year as situations, change.
Okay, but I think it's my understanding. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that it's less likely that we're going to be starting in September with 100% in person or 100% virtual. My understanding is that it's more likely we're going to have some kind of mix, not knowing which groups of students that may apply to. But is that not correct?
That's what it seems like from all what we've talked about, and as well as the other districts, it seems like, yes, we're hopeful to get as many, the larger percentage of students coming back. With that would leave obviously students doing it remotely, and maybe they would be remoting into some of those classes potentially. But the other piece is that I think we just want to be, I think what Peter's trying to say is that hybrid model means a lot of things to many different people.
Right.
To some people, it means a week on, a week off, or half days on, half days. So that hybrid model in some aspects that people are thinking of can be very unrealistic. But if you're thinking of some remote and some in-person, full-time potentially, or some other shape of that, that's maybe more likely than that. I think it's just the hybrid kind of throws people off a little bit, because people are thinking that is more days, some days on, some days off, and so forth.
I just don't want to give people watching, I don't want to give the community false hope that there's a good chance that we're going to be coming back 100%, every kid.
No, I don't think anyone thinks that is an option at this point.
Okay.
And I also
I just want to
think,
make sure we're real clear on that.
and because it's so preliminary, I hate to even speak to it, but there may be some other possibilities that we'll be putting on the table as we get closer, such as maybe starting some groups at some, I mean, I just want to be very vague on that because I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I think it's going to it could look different at different grade levels, for example, in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. And I just think it's important to tell people, even though we don't know, and even being vague, I think it's important to let people know that, what the most likely scenarios are. That's all.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one thing before, because it might help Anne Louise's question, but the commissioner also told us today that his office will be sending us a letter tomorrow, and that letter is, I believe, something that will be able to be shared out to parents and school committee members as soon as possible as well. So I've asked Dan to create a place on the website that we can put all those things, and every time we get an update, I'll send out a memo and the link to those new items.
Great, thank you. Anne Louise?
Yeah, I think the word hybrid is unintentionally creating confusion, and the reason is that it feels very black and white to people. But I think what the message that we've got to get across really is that we are trying to bring back as many students as possible, and even in a scenario where our intent would be to bring back 100%, some portion of the student body isn't going to come back of their own volition because they're either immunocompromised or parent or guardian doesn't feel comfortable with it because they've got someone else at home who's vulnerable. So, I think the message, unless I'm misunderstanding what the rest of the committee wants, is that we're going to try and bring back as many kids as possible. But what that looks like is just TBD. And I don't think we can pin down the administration on that announcement date, because until DESE approves one of our plans, there's nothing to announce. Having said that, Susan, do you think, I feel like by the point you're submitting 3 plans to the state, they're going to be pretty detailed because they have to be just to submit them. And maybe there's an opportunity to share with the community, and maybe that's Dawn's forum, what you're submitting, recognizing depending on where DESE goes, they may or may not approve our preferred plan, but at least everybody has a picture of what the 3 plans look like. Because what I don't think we can do is wait until, God forbid, you could see DESE doing something August 15th, right? And that's a nightmare for parents. They're like, what are we doing? And it's a week before school and they're trying to arrange childcare and transportation, et cetera. I think in fairness to parents, if we could share with them our 3 plans sooner than that, what we're submitting when they're done, and indicate what our preferred plan would be, just as long as there's clear understanding that it's all contingent upon state approval.
So the one thing that I have taken from some of these meetings, and Peter, you've been on some of them as well, is that our plan, whatever it is, should include all 3 options, because we may start the year, let's just say we started remotely for all kids because we weren't ready to come back fully. And then we staggered our students back. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's just say that happened. So then we would have to have an implementation plan in for what it would look like when the majority of students came back and then still had some remotely. But at any day that could change, and we may move to a blended learning format because something happens with illness or some. So my understanding still is that we still have to have all 3 options available to us, but there certainly will be a likelihood that we'll have a preference that we'll be sharing with parents that we're hoping to move in a certain direction. I'm very cautious because of the new news we received today that he's asking us to wait. And we all did believe that, I certainly thought that we would be closer to finalizing to some extent a plan at the district level, because I know the urgency of it, closer to the beginning of the month. And now that he's asking us to wait to the beginning of the month to even make a decision, certainly our group is going to be putting our thoughts down and putting it on paper and have a good idea of what we think. And then once we get his next steps for all of the districts, I think then hopefully we can go in that direction. So I know that doesn't sound as,
So you're saying that his guidance to the superintendents don't even announce what you're doing or what you're thinking?
no, he just asked us to not make a decision on what we would be doing until after August 1st, because I think he's being cautious about potentially any changes that could happen potentially with the virus or he didn't mention funding, but I think that they're hoping that they can make some additional changes before we can finalize our plans. It's not clear, and I think there's still a lot of questions on all of our ends, and he will be getting those questions again.
Okay.
Cynthia?
Hi, thanks. I'm just wondering whether there's been any discussion about having to adjust the school calendar in any way. I mean, I know we talked about PD, but I didn't know whether or not we had any thoughts in our planning, whether that would mean we might start school earlier, later, anything different from what we already have in place right now, which is September 1st. I don't know if that's been a thought as part of your discussions at all, Peter or Susan, whoever wants.
Yeah, it's come up as a talking point to some of the other districts that I've spoken with. Again, whether we'll be able to, but that, again, I think when I mentioned earlier, there may be things that we're coming back to you to ask. That is on the table as a potential. I just don't want to. I mean, I think we can't commit to that right now, but certainly it is a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Stacy, you're on mute.
You're muted, Stacy.
Sorry. Thank you, Susan. I just wanted to say, I think we just need to reiterate again to the community that decisions can't be made because the virus is really changing its course. And if you're watching the news, the southern states are in big surges now. So I think we just need to try and be patient. We're anxious in this together. So I think we just need to try and remember that. I know it's hard. We want to get the kiddos back. We want to get back to our normalcy. But I think we really just need to be a little more patient. And I think that is evident in what you heard from the commissioner today.
And I'm also hoping that letter is going to clarify. He spoke of the letter, but we haven't seen the letter. So I'm hoping that will give some clarity to his thought process and the team he's working with, because certainly he's got a big job on hand as well when you're running the whole state's educational system and trying to make decisions for students.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think related to that, we appreciate and encourage, the state, the region, and the town of Holliston to continue to do their part to social distance so that we can have this in the best possible state when it comes to the fall. Because that's one of the reasons we're in a position where we're, considering things that we weren't considering a month ago, because we've been doing a great job in this state and in New England, and we hope that will continue.
Dawn?
So I also wanted to say thank you. Thank you for sending out a parent survey tomorrow. And I think there's some talk of sending out a second parent survey later. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes, we actually, Peter had done a great job with the survey. And then after hearing the commissioner today, we felt it was too detailed right now. So we actually pared it down. So that is a short, brief one. Give us some quick snippets that might help us just process what parents are thinking right now on their end. And then once we're getting closer to knowing the direction that we're considering, then we would be giving a little more detail to that so we can kind of finalize how students might reentry as far as the parents are concerned as well.
Okay, and I think that's really important for people to know that they will get input. One thing I would ask is that we then get back to the community with a summation of those surveys, because it is disheartening when people put forth the time and give input, and they just want to make sure they're heard, that there is a summation of the survey results, and this is how we're going to act on it. I think the surveys are a great idea. I still feel strongly that a parent forum is important. I mean, we have something like, 5,000 parents here. And if we have 5 subcommittees and invite 1 parent per subcommittee, that's 5 voices. But we want to make sure we're giving voice to all of those other families as well. So I would encourage people to fill out the survey, the first one and the second one, and to continue to voice concerns.
And once we have our parent representatives for those 5 groups, that is also a way to get information back to those committees. So that will be helpful as well.
All right. Peter, do you want to talk about extended school year?
Yeah, I just have Kelly Camp gave me some, I was over there as well, visiting, and yeah, it's teachers and kids and the leaders and, Victoria and Lynn and Deb Holleran and Kelly, we're all excited to be there. I mean, the kids just seem so excited to be back in school, and the teachers were the same way. So we had a successful first week. We had 42 students accessing in-person services. We had several students Zooming live into classrooms. And that was one of the things that I was observing was, we had iPads set up on special stands where teachers, when they were doing a mini lesson, could then Zoom, not only deliver that to the kids who were in person, but also have some kids back at home being able to observe that mini lesson. And then, especially with in extended school year, we have great ratios as far as adults to kids. You adults also, being able to connect with kids at home in person, and whether they were interacting with the class that was going on in the school or just interacting with them personally in order to support their learning. We were able to see that, and we were able to kind of consider how some of that approach might connect to a hybrid environment with more kids in the future. So these 42 kids were across 11 classrooms. Related services, including speech, OT, PT, were providing remote services to students while they were at school. Staff and students, as people mentioned, were following safety protocols. These included completing a health and safety questionnaire prior to entering school each day, hand sanitizing prior to entering. Students were met by staff just inside and escorted to class. We had directional arrows that you'll see throughout the buildings in order to control traffic. Individual bins for materials, toys, and strategies. Cleaning protocols followed in classrooms, and students dismissed directly to parents. And so, all those safety protocols are in place. Also, kids were doing great jobs wearing masks in school. We're following the 6-foot guidance or more, and that's very easy to do with the smaller numbers of kids we have in our extended school year. And again, and then in addition to the kids who are in school, approximately 102 kids are receiving remote services. So again, it was a great first week, and both adults and kids were excited to be there. And so we're reflecting upon the extended school year and how we're doing things, and especially the health and safety protocols, and using that information to help inform planning for hopefully much larger group in the fall.
Thank you. Cynthia?
I'm sorry, Peter, what was the total number of students that you were servicing through ESY?
42 in person and 102 remotely.
That's what I wrote down. Okay, thank you. That's a lot of kids. It's more than I thought.
Any other questions about extended school year? Lisa?
Sorry, can I just add one thing really quickly? I thought it was really interesting that one of the questions that you have to answer as a parent every morning before your child goes into ESY is whether or not you've traveled outside of New England, New York, New Jersey in the last 14 days. And I think that's interesting for two reasons. Parents might want to be thinking about that as they make their late August summer plans. You might get some questions about that. But also it tells you that, thankfully we're in a better place now. New England is doing a little bit better than some of our neighbors to the south. And I'm just, as someone else was saying earlier, it's just the best thing you can do is wear your mask and keep doing what we've been doing. And hopefully that'll help us get the kids back quickly.
Great. Any other questions? Cynthia, was that okay. All right. Thank you, Peter, and to Kelly and Deb and everyone who's really working so hard. And I'm glad they get to see the smiling faces of the kiddos. So that's.
Yeah, and I was definitely just reporting it. They have been doing all the work, and I'm proud of what they've done.
Well, thank you. So before we move into the FY21 budget, if there's any update, I shared with the committee earlier today, actually late this afternoon, a letter that the select board would like to send to Congress, to our congressional leaders from the Finance Committee, the School Committee, and the Select Board. And this actually came out of the recommendation from Senator Spilka and Rep. Dykema. They strongly encouraged that we write letters. So I sent a draft to you all this afternoon, and I would like to be able to offer a vote so that we can sign that and get that signed by the select board on Monday and FinCom on Tuesday. So are there any questions about
There's a missing comma. I'm sure Lisa will point it out, but there's a missing comma. But it's a great letter. Thank you.
Anne Louise.
Stacy, I did not see that this afternoon because I wasn't online. So if you want to give me a few minutes, I'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Second paragraph, Stacy. I don't know if you wrote the letter or was it the letter that they wrote?
No, I cannot take credit for that.
Oh, you just forwarded it. Okay. So they just want us to sign whatever this letter is?
Yes.
Okay. Then I will keep my comments to myself about punctuation.
But you can send it to me. Send it to me, and
Okay.
I'll send an edited document back to Tina.
Okay. And then my only other question about that was in the last paragraph. Sorry, it's like almost like the last sentence. I know they talked about the very last paragraph, the last sentence. It mentions additional flexible federal assistance. I know in the I just want to make sure. I mean, I don't know. I think the paragraph before that talks about spending allowances and funds. So I guess assistance is the same thing as what they asked in the paragraph ahead. But assistance, I just wanted to be very clear that we're looking for money. That's the assistance we're looking for.
Federal financial. You want me to suggest federal financial assistance?
Yes, please. Do you mind?
No, I don't. But would you actually send that to me?
For me to email you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did Tina send this to us earlier in the week? Or I think she had sent me a copy. So I have seen this actually because she sent it to me a few days ago. I, like Cynthia, probably if I had edit privileges, might catch a comma or two, but otherwise I think it's great.
All right. Are there any questions? Because I'd like to propose, I would ask for a motion to approve this letter and authorize.
Seconded by Cynthia.
I don't. Seconded by Cynthia, and you are approving this letter and giving me authorization to sign this on behalf of the school committee, along with the select board chair and the finance committee chair.
Yes, as amended with financial and the comma that I'm going to send to you right now.
Yes, perfect. Okay, roll call vote. Mrs. Lestepnik.
Yes.
Ms. Naborski.
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Hold on, my squares moved. Ms. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi? Yes. Great, thank you. Is there anything from the budget subcommittee that you need to share this evening?
Just a quick update. We did have a budget subcommittee meeting this week, and really the primary point of that was to introduce Dr. Kuska to the subcommittee and, importantly, to our 3 finance committee liaisons and to our select board liaison. But Tina wasn't able to join us yesterday, so that has to wait. I think the main update is simply that the finance committee voted to support our recommended budget to recommend our budget as we voted it, if that makes any sense. So basically the level services plus the 0.55%, which is the number we voted in, our most recent one. And Keith, I'm sure you know that number right off the top of your head, 30 some odd $1 million. But anyway, so they have recommended to support that. And so that will go into the warrant for town meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any
Wait,
questions?
did you want the number, Anne Louise?
Sure, you can read it out.
Sure, it's $35,139,715.
Thank you.
No sense.
Thank you. Cynthia, you had a question?
It actually was just about whether there was any change to town meeting or whether that's still happening when it's happening. Or if anybody knows.
No more changes.
No more changes. Okay.
It is happening on the 20th.
Okay.
It will be held at the Placentino Miller Cafetorium. I don't have them up in front of me, but I encourage people to go to the town website. I'm sure the details are there, but it's going to be very tightly managed in terms of people entering, being directed to their seat, limited number. So be there, be square, and sign up soon. Because I think you have to register, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Go ahead.
We're also going to have a little more information. I'll have a little more information tomorrow. There's a meeting tomorrow coordinating it with people from the town. So I'll be at that in the morning at Placentino. So
Super.
Thank you.
The only other thing, a couple of you reached out, Stacy and Cynthia, unclear about what the actual funding resources are for the different, I'll call them COVID-related federal, state, and even local kind of programs, if you will. And really, there's only 4 resources. But the challenge is there's still some lack of clarity at the state level on how they're handling federal money because they've only allocated a portion of it. And it's not clear if a couple of the other programs that are in place are tapping into the federal resources that the state hasn't yet, quote unquote, allocated or not. So this week I did reach out to Chief Cassidy, our select board liaison, Tina Hine, and to the chair of the finance committee, Ken Shada, to try to get a little more clarity on this. And I think I have it. So, but rather than go through it tonight, because I want to make sure I don't misstate anything, I'm going to send out a memo to everybody tomorrow. So you have it. But it really comes down to the 4 programs that there's nothing new. Let's put it that way.
Thank you for that, Anne Louise. I think it's easier for me often to be able to read it and refer to it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions about the budget? Okay. We just need to revote the school committee meeting schedule for 2020-2021. And I had shared that with Susan this week and shared with her that, we are very flexible in terms of adding or deleting meetings as need be. So unless anyone has any questions, I would take a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school committee meeting schedule as provided in your packets.
Moved by Cynthia.
Second by Dawn. Can't hear you, Stace.
Sorry. Moved by Cynthia, seconded by Dawn. Roll call vote. Mrs. Listevnik,
Yes.
Ms. Naborski,
Yes.
Ms. Koshin,
Yes.
Mr. Morton,
Yes.
Ms. Savard,
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead,
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi. Yes. Great. And we just need to revote our school committee newsletter that was sent out on, actually, I don't even know what date it was sent out. I think it was the 19th, June 19th. So is there a motion to reapprove the school committee newsletter?
Wait, why are we reapproving it?
Because there was some discussion that it was not clearly stated on the agenda at our last meeting. So Liz Greendale asked me to just put it on this agenda again.
So moved by Anne Louise.
Moved by Anne, seconded by Dawn. Roll call vote. Mrs. Listevnik,
Yes.
Ms. Naborski,
Yes.
Ms. Koshin,
Yes.
Mr. Morton,
Yes.
Ms. Savard,
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead,
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. Thank you. And I'm just going to share with you some of the warrants that I have signed recently and a few more that I will be signing this evening. School bill warrant in the amount of $122,424.71. A school bill warrant in the amount of $106,434.68. A school bill warrant in the amount of $150,037.95. A school bill warrant in the amount of $227,458.07. A school bill warrant in the amount of $137,553.16. A cafeteria bill in the amount of $2,424.35. A payroll warrant in the amount of $780,890.97. A school bill warrant. No, I signed these. I signed this one already. 106 and 122. Yep, I already signed those. Oh, I reported all of them to you. So that's what I have signed off. At this point, we are done with our agenda. This is probably the fastest meeting we've ever had. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 23rd, 7 p.m. Honestly, Susan and I have not talked about it yet. There will be a school closure COVID-19 update, and we can actually recap spring town meeting, which will be held on the July 20th. And Lisa?
Oh, can we just get an update at that meeting on some of the work that we've been talking about on diversity, looking at the curriculum through that lens and so forth, just to kind of get a sense of next steps?
Maybe if I could, Peter, thumbs up on that. Okay. Anne Louise?
Stace, if you haven't already, can you just post for a meeting an hour before town meeting?
Yes.
Thanks.
Dawn, go ahead while I'm noting.
For the July 23rd, we probably want to read in our gender equity policy again, because if we can get 3 readings, then we can get it passed before school starts. So maybe if we add it on July 23rd and again on August 6th.
We can waive this. We can waive the 3rd reading, Dawn. So we just need that too. Yeah.
So the gender identity policy, and are we going to do another policy?
There were 2 others we talked about. So let's
Yeah, we won't have those ready for that date.
Okay, well, at least we can get,
We'll get
another-
that one, yes. We'll work
Okay.
on the other ones.
Okay, and update on diversity. And
We should probably
any
think
other,
about doing a newsletter sometime during the summer. It doesn't necessarily have to be approved at the July 23rd meeting, but we should probably try to do one newsletter this summer.
So glad we have a journalist on our staff.
if
How about
you-
after town meeting? We'll actually have something to put in it, maybe.
I just want to, so Lisa and Dawn, you're on communications, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Possible newsletter. Okay. With any other questions?
Would Catherine also be on communications now, since she's new to the general committee? Is that something that we could work together, the three of us?
Yeah, technically, Keith, do we vote?
We haven't
or-
reorged yet.
I don't
I
think,
know we haven't, but it,
I don't know if it matters,
Never
right?
been in a position to have someone sit through several meetings without being on a committee, though.
Right, I know. That's why I'm like, I don't know what the protocol is there, whether it matters.
I don't,
I mean, there's nothing preventing you from doing that. You know, I mean, normally do your reorg is when you also reorg all the subcommittees as well. So it could be a one-timer, but that's, again, there's nothing preventing you from doing it.
I'm certainly happy to help. I'm more than happy to help with that. But when does the reorg happen? I know everything's off schedule, but do we have a
After-
tentative?
the meeting after graduation. So
Okay.
it would be August 6th.
Okay.
Well, Catherine, you're welcome to join them if you guys want to start having some communication subcommittee, just to start thinking about some things.
Sure.
That would be awesome. Great. All right, it's 8:09. Is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Anne Louise, seconded by Cynthia. Roll call vote. Mrs. Listevnik,
Yes.
Ms. Naworski,
Yes.
Ms. Mushin,
Yes.
Ms. Savard,
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Raffi. Yes, it is 8:09. We are adjourned. Thank you all and have a great night. Happy birthday.
Good night,
Anne.
everybody. Thank you.